I didn't expect this to be the story that pulled me in, mostly because pirates. And not even real pirates. I'm talking about that weird early 2000s phase where everyone suddenly had a pirate personality. Bandanas, rum jokes, are it was a whole thing. I rolled my eyes then, and I've been avoiding anything remotely pirate adjacent ever since. So the fact that I'm sitting here willingly writing about pirates feels a little ironic. But enough time has passed, and this one isn't that. This one is real, and it's complicated in a way I didn't expect. On the surface, the story is pretty straightforward. A pirate boards a fishing vessel off the coast of New England. He demands a man by name. The captain hesitates, and the pirate makes it clear, hand him over or everyone on board dies. There's a promise layered into it too. A short one, temporary. He'll be returned in a couple of months. So the captain makes the choice, and he gives him up. That should have been the end of it for me. A hard decision, maybe even a necessary one. The kind of thing you can understand even if you don't like it. The kind of story you hear, process, and move on from. But then I realized something. The captain was my 7th great-grandfather, Captain Mark Haskell. And the man he handed over, also mine. A young sailor named John Philmore Jr., my first cousin 9 times removed. And that's the moment it stopped being a story. Because it's one thing to hear about a decision like that from a distance. It's another to realize you're connected to both sides of it. The person making the call and the one it's made about. There's no clean place to stand anymore. No easy way to decide how you feel about it. Because this wasn't some random crew member. This was family. A kid from Ipswich, whose mother had already lost her husband to the sea, taken prisoner and never returned. She tried to keep her son away from that life, apprenticed him to a carpenter, gave him something stable, something predictable, something that didn't end in open water. She saw exactly what could happen. She already knew how this story goes, and she tried to reroute it. Tried to build something different for him that didn't involve risk or chance or the kind of decisions that get made out on the water. But he went anyway. And not in a reckless way, just in the way people do when something pulls at them hard enough. The ocean, the work, the life around it. Whatever it was stronger than the version she had tried to build for him. And he didn't just go anywhere. He went under Mark's watch, which, whether anyone said it out loud or not, comes with a certain level of trust, responsibility, maybe even an unspoken promise that if something goes wrong, you'll do what you can to make it right. And then, out on the fishing grounds, that promise got tested. A pirate named John Phillips boarded their ship. Not the kind of pirate people like to joke about, but the kind that built control the hard way. He had started as a ship's carpenter, someone who understood how vessels worked from the inside out, and somewhere along the way that turned into something else. By the time he crossed paths with Mark's ship, he wasn't chasing treasure. He was taking people, crew by crew, vessel by vessel, building something that ran on fear and control. And he wanted Fillmore, not just anyone, not whoever was easiest to take, him. At first, Haskell refused, which tells you a lot of what you need to know about him. But the second demand came with a threat that didn't leave room for pride or principle. Hand him over, or the entire ship goes down. And this is the moment everything turns. Because this isn't just a captain making a call. From what I've read, Fillmore doesn't wait to see how it plays out. He steps forward, or at the very least, he doesn't let it fall on someone else. There is a version of this where he refuses and someone else gets taken instead, but he doesn't do that. So in that moment, one man gets handed over, or steps forward, or some combination of both that we'll never fully be able to separate out. And everything that comes after depends on what happens next. When John Fillmore stepped onto that ship, I don't think he believed he was coming back. You can tell yourself things in a moment like that it's temporary, that 2 months means just 2 months, that if you just get through it, you'll be returned and this will become something you'll tell about later instead of something you live through. But this wasn't just any crew. This was John Phillips. And by the time Fillmore was standing on that deck, that name already meant something. There's a detail I keep coming back to because it shifts the story in a way I didn't expect. He wasn't just taken at random. Somebody on that ship recognized him from before, from his time apprenticing as a carpenter. They knew what he could do. They knew he'd be useful. So this wasn't just bad luck. He was chosen. At first, it almost reads like restraint. Fillmore refuses to sign on as a pirate, and they don't force it right away. He's put at the helm, which sounds fine until you sit with it for a second, because it's not trust, it's function. He's not free, he's not safe, he's just useful. Kept alive because he serves a purpose. Well, that 2-month promise doesn't hold. That time passes, and when he asks to be released, he's told to stay longer, just a little longer. Just enough to keep him there without saying outright that he is not leaving. And that's the shift, because it stops being temporary and starts becoming something else. Time stretches, not in a dramatic way, just slowly. Days that don't feel different from each other, nights that never really settle into sleep. The constant motion of the water underneath everything, the smell of salt and damp wood, and something sour that never clears out. More men are brought on board, not volunteers, not recruits, people taken the same way he was. The ship fills with people who don't belong there, and the energy changes. There's no real quiet, even when things look calm. There's something underneath it, a tension that doesn't go away. You're never alone. You're never fully at rest. You're always aware of where everyone else is. Drinking is constant, and not in a way that softens anything. It makes everything worse, looser, louder, less predictable, and more dangerous. At some point, one of the men Fillmore knows is killed. Just gone. No long build-up, no warning that changes everything. Just a moment where it becomes clear that this doesn't end well for everyone. And after that, the math changes. This is not about waiting out 2 months anymore. It's about surviving something that doesn't have a clear end. At one point, Phillips fires a pistol directly at him, and it doesn't go off. The detail sits weirdly in the story. It almost reads like luck or hesitation or something else entirely. But whatever it was, it doesn't make things better. It just makes things clearer. He's not protected. He's just not dead yet. And by then, enough time has passed that the idea of going home the way he left it probably doesn't feel real anymore. This was not a short ordeal. This was months, close to a year. Long enough for hope to stretch thin. Long enough for that original purpose to feel like something that was never meant to be kept. And somewhere in all of that, something shifts. Not all at once, just enough. Enough to start noticing who else might be thinking the same thing. Enough to understand that no one is coming to fix this. That if anything changes, it won't be given. It'll have to be taken. By the time things start to shift, it isn't sudden. Nothing about this is. It builds slowly, underneath everything else that's already been going wrong. By then, Fillmore isn't the only one thinking about it. There are others. Men taken from different ships, all stuck in the same position, all watching the same patterns play out day after day. Over time, they find each other in small, quiet ways. Nothing obvious, nothing that would get them noticed, just enough to recognize that they're not alone in it. Not everyone makes it that far. In the end, it comes down to 3. Fillmore, a carpenter named Cheeseman, and another man described in the record only as a Spanish indigenous man. That's all he gets. No name, no background, just that. 3 men against a full crew. And this isn't desperation in the way people like to imagine it. It's not reckless. It's not a last-second decision. It's patient and calculated. It's the kind of plan that only comes from living inside something long enough to understand exactly where it breaks. The opportunity comes when things get sloppy. The crew takes another vessel, there's drinking, and control loosens just enough. That's the pattern. It's always the same. The alcohol, the noise, the false sense that nothing can touch them out there. Fillmore's been watching it for months at this point, long enough to know this is as close as they're going to get. He doesn't rush it. Small things first, quiet things. 2 of the pirates are taken out before anything fully begins. No spectacle or warning, just removing pieces from the board before anyone realizes a game is being played. Weapons are placed where they'll be needed. Timing is everything. It has to be. That night doesn't feel different at first. It looks like every other night they've had. The same noise, the same drinking, the same loose, uneven rhythm the crew falls into when they think they're untouchable. If anything, it feels easier, maybe a little lighter, like things have slipped just enough that no one is really paying attention anymore. But underneath that, something is different, because this time there's a plan. And that changes how everything feels. You start noticing things you've seen 100 times before, but now they matter. Who's drinking the most? Who's drifting off first? Where the weapons are? Who's where on the ship? And how long they stay there? All of it starts to take shape in a way it didn't before. Nothing is said out loud. At this point, they all know. This isn't the kind of moment where you can back out once it's in motion. There's no version of this where they try and fail and just go back to the way things were. If it doesn't work, it ends there. So the waiting becomes its own kind of pressure. Not panic, not even fear in the way you'd expect. Just this steady awareness that the next few hours are going to decide everything. And then there's nothing left to do but let it happen. And then morning comes, and everything breaks. It's fast, but not chaotic. Not in the way you'd expect. There's a direction to it. Fillmore moves first. The attack lands before the crew has time to fully react. What follows isn't clean. It's close. It's physical. Axes, hammers, whatever's in reach. This isn't a battle with distance. It's right there within arm's reach where hesitation gets you killed. And for a moment, it could go either way. There's no guarantee here, no safety net. If this fails, it doesn't reset. It ends completely, but it doesn't fail. John Phillips is killed, and with that, everything changes. The balance that's been held in place for months just drops. The rest of the crew either surrenders or falls in line. And just like that, the people who had no control are the ones holding it. What happens next is the part people remember. The part that makes the story feel almost unreal, even though it isn't. Phillips' head is removed, nailed to the mast, and carried back towards Boston. Not for spectacle, for proof. The ship had belonged to a Boston lawyer named William Minot. And when it was over, the message needed to be sent back clearly. This was done. This was finished. This wasn't a story someone could question or reinterpret. So they put it in a container and sent it back in a pickle barrel. Which is unfortunate because I love pickles. Grillos, you can call me anytime. But even that detail, as strange as it sounds, doesn't take away from what just happened. Because when you strip it back, this wasn't about revenge. It was about ending something that wasn't going to end on its own. And somehow, through it all, Fillmore is still standing. And for a long time, that's where the story ends, at sea, with survival. That's the version that gets told. The part with the pirates, the mutiny, the head in the barrel, it's contained. It has an arc, it makes sense, but it didn't stay there. Because eventually the ship makes it back to Boston, back to something that looks like order again. And what they're bringing with them isn't just a story, it's evidence, it's people. It's a situation that has to be answered for. There's a trial, the kind where everything gets pulled apart and examined. What happened, who did what counts as survival and what crosses into something else. And in the end, the men who took the ship back aren't treated like criminals. They're acquitted. Which says a lot without saying it directly, because it means someone, somewhere, looked at what happened and decided this wasn't murder. This wasn't rebellion for the sake of it. This was something else, something necessary. And then, just like that, the story settles, at least on paper. But that's not really where it ends, because back in Ipswich, there's someone connected to all of this who never stepped foot on that ship. Jemima. And once I realized where she fits into this, it changed the story completely. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly, in the kind of way that shifts how you see everything that came before it. Because she connects both sides. She marries Mark Haskell, which ties her life to the ocean whether she chose it or not. And the man her husband handed over, the one at the center of all of this, is her cousin. So while Mark is making a decision out on the water when he probably didn't have time to fully think through, Jemima is the one left on land with whatever comes back. And for a long time, that's nothing. No confirmation, no timeline, no way to know if he's alive or dead or somewhere in between, just absence. And whatever version of the story eventually finds its way back. This isn't just a story about what happened on a ship. It's about what happens after, how it lands, how it's carried by people who weren't there to make the decision, but have to live with it anyway. I keep finding the same pattern in these stories. Different people, different circumstances, but the same kind of moment. A point where something has to give and they decide it won't be them. And it doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like a choice you make because every other option is worse. But it shows up again and again. And it's hard not to feel connected to that because when you sit with these people long enough, they stop feeling distant. They stop being names on a page or something you can keep at arm's length. They start to feel familiar. Fillmore survived something that very easily could have ended differently. Not just in the obvious way, but in all the smaller ways too. He makes it through months of something that was never meant to be temporary. And when the moment comes, he doesn't wait for it to resolve on its own. He does something about it. And somehow, all of that continues. He goes on to live a full life, a long one. Build something after all of this that doesn't look anything like the ship he was stuck on. A family, a line that keeps moving forward, generation after generation, all the way to people who probably never even knew this part of the story existed. And then eventually it gets to me, because this is the part I'm still figuring out. Because I didn't grow up feeling connected to New England. It always felt like somewhere else, someone else's story, not mine. But this changed that, because these aren't abstract people anymore. They're mine, and not in a distant technical way, in a real way. The kind where you start to recognize something in them that feels a little too familiar. That instinct to hold on, to figure it out, to not let something take you under, even when it probably should. And honestly, I think that's the part I keep coming back to. Not the pirates, not the mutiny, not even the head in the barrel. Just that, the part that carries. Thanks for being there. I guess this is where I walk the plank. See you next time.